Hi. So, in today's video, I'll be telling you more about the symbolism of a monkey, a dragon, a chicken, piggybank. I'll be talking a little bit about Snow White, Dwarfs, and Aladdin too, about the door and the red light too, as well as the cabbage. So, um, um, I'll be telling you how basically I acted out my future life in my very first, maybe not the very first, but even when I was 10 years old or 9 years old. Okay. So if that's something that sounds interesting to you, then stay tuned. And we are starting with the monkey. We are starting with a letter to Santa. When I decided that um, I wanted to get a real monkey as a gift from Santa, and instead I got a toy monkey. And sure thing, I liked the monkey. The monkey got the name Cheetah, and during that time, I would like to tell you that we also took a lot of photos on the carriage with monkeys and horses. And as I'm speaking about photos, I have to tell you that I was the one who had a lot of naked photos taken of me when I was just a baby, just a little baby, not walking yet. So I didn't pay attention to that. My sister told me like, "Oh, those photos are like not good." And the point is that there were many, many of them. And I also had photos of me taken with the cousin when we were just kissing, like, on the cheek or just, like that. But, you know, uh, it's kind of weird. So that's something that I wanted to tell you, by the way, when speaking about monkeys and having monkeys on the photos. Um, So, my monkey was called Cheetah, and during that time, we used to watch a lot of Western films, Western movies depicting cowboys and real monkeys too. And, when I was 33 years old woman, I read Armand McGill's book entitled Hypnotism and Mysticism of India. And that's the book that tells you, explains you, how energy works and how magicians work with their energy. So he talks specifically about some breathing exercises that you could practice to start developing your extrasensory perception, and you gain some skills of magicians. And Armand McGill is a hypnotist. He is not just somebody telling you some woo-woo stuff. He's a very famous hypnotist. Um, so monkey can be symbolical because in my life, monkeys played out happened to just mimicking me and mimicking what I did, what I wanted to do in life. And there was a lot of that. So in Piglet, I give you specific examples, but I would just mention a few that I was a monkey too, and I wanted to copy too. So I wanted to go and go to boarding school just like my sister, and I wanted to learn art in high school, and I wasn't allowed. She was allowed, my brother was allowed, and I wasn't allowed. I was told that we didn't have the money for it, and it was an expensive school. And later, as I was number three, life path number three, I just had a lot of ideas about what to do in my life, and I was, a person that supposedly has a lot of talents, but basically for sure I had a lot of interest. So I wanted to study for a short moment of photography. And that was the time when my sister started to learn to use Photoshop. It didn't last too long and nothing came out of it, but she just started when I wanted to study photography, which meant, you had to go to photography classes and you had to start, putting some energy into preparation for those studies. But I didn't even, I also didn't go any further with that idea. And then I started to study English philology, and that was the moment for her to enroll on English course. And when I was very, very much proud of, the topic for my MA thesis, which I picked up, uh, and I was writing about Velgartan, about the words surrounding poo and shit, and their varieties in war literature. So I was proud that I chosen a very unique, original topic, and topic that was a niche topic. And then my sister gave a speech about, about the speech of, sorry, she made a webinar about the speech of hatred. So that was around that time. And when I wanted to write an ebook with games for children, she started to write her own book too. And and there was much more than that, because I wanted to, at some moment in time, I wanted to have permanent eyebrows. So she was the first one to do permanent eyebrows. And I wanted to have this youth procedure from my beautician because I was aging, and she was just all the time around me looking like as if she just left a beautician. And during that time, she would also make remarks that she looked 9 years younger, that she looked like me, or even better. So I found this very immature to say something like that around a person that looked like me back then. Or, I wanted to have a tattoo. I never made a tattoo, but not once in my life I have been thinking and I wanted to have a tattoo. But in the ending result, we were just, my sibling were gathering the money for a birthday gift for hair to have a tattoo first. Um, and And there was more, I even wanted to have a yellow chair, and I was searching it online, and she bought a chair like that. Or I was, you know, there was much more. And I have to tell you that she wasn't the only one, because my other sisters also started to do the same. Like, I was all of a sudden interested in making your own clothes, and I was considering, enrolling on some course. So my second sister, enrolled on a course, and I was even, just dreaming of having a sewing machine because I couldn't afford it. To just make my own clothes, to just do something with my own hands. So so my sister bought such a sewing machine to her daughter. And and during the time when I wanted to eat, blueberries, and I was learning about health, I learned about ginkgo biloba, that this is very good for enhancing your memory. Then she planted such a tree in her own garden, and she would have a natural ginkgo biloba leaves in later in a few years, right? Or when I was reading about blueberries being good for your brain, and I wanted to have mountain blueberries, I was told that there were no more mountain blueberries coming for sale, just American blueberries. And then my sister had them all the time, And when I was about number 8, she even started to, she would give to her daughter 8 beans to grow. So I mean, there was much more. There was much more, and we were acting like that. Where my impression was with time that I really try to separate myself from copying my eldest sister. And my impression was that she actually became this monkey. But the thing is, we called her monkey. So we really actually referred to her as a monkey. So uh, the reason also why I mentioned, Armand McGill and his book of India, Hypnotism and Mysticism of India, is because there is this, the idea of the cluttered mind mentioned over there, and he speaks specifically about cheetah. I'm not sure if that's the same pronunciation, that's the name of my monkey. But then, in that sense, the monkey I asked for was really symbolical in, both ways. Like cheetah having those thoughts that are disturbing in your mind. This is cheetah, because if you don't meditate, you can just not say which thought is yours, which thought is not. And when you start meditating, then with time you will start having less thoughts. And in that sense, your mind is going to be more at peace, and then you will be able to, exert more control over your focus and over your own body functions with time too. So, monkey happened to be very symbolical, and because my life was just, being reflected by quite a few people. And when I was writing the book, that even happened to be um, a bigger event in my life. I would like to say here that I had many more monkeys. But, okay. But then, also when I was a little girl, I had a dragon, and it was attached to the strings, and I could just, play with its legs. And it would quite often fell on the floor, and then my sister would have to fix those strings for me. And I also remember we went to Krakow to go sightseeing and see the Babel Castle and the dragon over there. And you know, um, and maybe it is relevant. Maybe it is somehow connected with the dragon I had when I was a little girl. But then, when I was a 33 or 34 years old woman, I bought this dragon, and he was starring in the film where I said that I was addicted to sex, where in fact I wasn't. And when I made a fool out of myself, and I was a god, and I was bringing peace in Israel, because during that time there was a war in Israel. So yeah. And when I bought this dragon, yeah, I have been thinking about the boss I met. So that's the dragon when being an adult woman, and just having the need to act like a younger person. And what's also what also can be relevant in terms of a dragon, someone who I think is sexually abused showed me online, and he's a very young person, and he showed me online the very same toy. So in a lot of ways, the dragon can be symbolical. So here I don't tell you more about sexual abuse and identities. I do it in the group Nostril to Nostril, and I do it on my website. You can check it out. Okay, so the next thing was the chicken. So from uncle who is a farmer, I got a chicken, and that chicken could walk on its own. And I gave away the chicken to my other cousin. And what I have to tell you with regard to the chicken is that I don't know if that particular toy played out the more significant role in my life, but not so long ago I wrote a piece about Nicholas, and I wrote about chicken, and I wrote about eggs, and I wrote about a mom who I know, not my mom, but a mom that I know of, who knows that her child is sexually abused, and who knows that that child was being told a story about chicken and eggs. And in my close environment, I could hear um, someone just repeating like ginger with no egg, with ginger without egg, ginger without egg, and I could hear, from this other mom the story about chicken in half of the bed, that that chicken cut half of the bed of his mom because he made such a trick, and that boy would repeat it over and over. It's a longer article about sexual abuse that involves, very, very young children who are told stories so that they would have their mouth shut for years, and so that they would believe that probably that they agreed to this abuse. Um, so in that sense, I have linked the chicken, but I'm not sure if that's correct. And was there more? Yes, there was more, because here I'll be telling you more about the piggy bank. So I had a pink piggy bank. My sister had a green piggy bank, and sure thing, I played with those piggy banks with my cousin. We would fill those piggy banks with water, and we would attach the string to them, and we would let them, just hang and spread that water. So that was our game. Um, and for me, the piggy bank and the pig is the symbol that actually brought me into discovering Jewish history because I live in a Jewish town that was mainly Jewish town before the Second World War. Half of the population, maybe not mainly, half of the population was Jewish during the Second World War, before just the Second World War. So pigs, because one grandpa had 100 of pigs, and the other grandpa worked with pigs. So both of them had to do something with pigs, and it was quite relevant that I learned about it shortly before my dad died, because I had no idea what my grandparents were doing professionally, or what even my father was doing professionally. So and I learned from the organizer of Jewish festival, from Mr. Janusz Makuch, uh, that there is a story long ago that would regard probably the first temple, that that temple was made dirty because the pig was killed in that temple. And for Jewish people during that time, that was a big event. But I'm sorry, I don't remember the details better, but I couldn't find the video today when I was searching it. So yeah, and as I told you at the beginning of my book, I actually came across, when writing my MA, I came across a lot of references to pigs, and and funny stories and funny anecdotes. And I was even wondering, maybe I should just switch the topic of my MA to from writing about a shitty vocabulary to writing about pigs. And then when I was reading the book written by Adam Bartosz about Jewish people in time of the period, after the war, then I have learned that there were some weird punishments based on keeping people in pig barns, or inscriptions on walls saying Jew, pig, right? So there were references to pig over there in that book too. So therefore, I link Piggybank with pigs. And when I was a little girl, mom would give me bread, and I would eat this bread, and I would throw away the skin of the bread behind the bed. So, I know that my mom knew about it, but she would just take it out after some time, not right away when I threw it away. And I think in that sense, I was acting out with my mom, fasting, because when I was 33, I was fasting I was having my longest ever fast, and I didn't feel safe enough with my own mother to tell her that I was fasting. Um, Nowadays, when I just fast, I just tell her I fast, and I do not worry about the words that I hear in return to that message. Uh, yeah. So I think I was just acting out my future when I was throwing away this bread skin behind the bed. And when I was writing the book, I told you that there were a lot of situations that I found threatening to me, and that made me kind of wonder if I should keep on writing or not. And that was, here is the connection to the past. One time I remember I was running away from my sisters. So she was, we were arguing, and I was running away from her, and I was trying to jump off the stairs, and then she was up on the stairs, and she caught my hair, and I was just hanging for one moment like that, but it didn't hurt me. I didn't feel anything. But years later, uh, when I was writing the book, she told me that she felt like pushing somebody off the stairs. So for me, that was threatening, because we used to fight, and even though I was running away from her, I never felt that she wanted to, or would like to, or would feel like throwing me off the stairs, that she would go that far with being angry. I never suspected something like that. So I was, like, worried that a lot of bad things were all of a sudden happening at the same time, and therefore she was, saying those words, and I was like, oh my god, is it like the work of covert hypnosis, or is it really like, what's up? Right? Yeah. Now I know she was just lying. That wasn't true. Yeah. Yeah. And here is the reference to dwarfs. So you know that dwarfs appear in Snow White, and we watched Snow White on the cassettes on the TV, and we had a book with Snow White. And how the story goes is that the jealous witch wanted to kill Snow White, and she was hidden in Dwarfs' house, and the witch found her over there anyway, and she gave her the apple. And once Snow White had this apple, she fell asleep for a very, very long time. So, I had a tiny dwarf. It had pink hair, and pink is the color of my book cover. And we also had yet another dwarf with with gray, no, gray green hair. So it was pink. I had a pink, and somebody else had the dwarf with green hair. But I met a neighbor, and she told me that she would just come over at night and give me a different dwarf if I gave her mine with pink hair. So I gave her mine. I was naive. She never came back. She never came around. She never gave me my dwarf. She just basically lied to me, and she stole my dwarf. Which wasn't, something really fancy. It was just, a very tiny thing that you can find in Kinder Surprise. I mean, that big, or that small, if you like. Um, and this is connected with me going to London and trying to file the motion to the king about witches and occultism and the system built by the witches. And not only I looked like I looked, wearing a hoodie, sunglasses, and walking with an umbrella, but I also, was fasting for a very, very long time. Why? Because I thought it would help me know better. It would help me to, do what the witches do, to channel and to develop my extrasensory perception. And I'm not saying it didn't work. It worked, but I just had bigger expectations, and I just expected to be further along with this extrasensory perception on the way. Uh, and then, it turned out that I didn't plan it well because having my longest fast ever, it turned out that I was weak and weak, feeling weak, looking weak, being very skinny in that time. And then I had to go to London and I had to start to eat. Not to mention, then when being in front of the Buckingham Palace, I had an apple and I felt really, really guilty that, I ate something, and maybe because of I ate something, then I didn't actually made the right choice, right decision. Maybe I got scared because I have had this food and I didn't get the right information from the outside, like with the feelings and so on and so on. So um, and it's not only that, of course, because I had the meeting with the police. They didn't give me the passport. I didn't ask for the passport. I got scared, and all of a sudden I had to get back home. And before even going there, I had a conversation about Adam and Eve with my rabbi, and there was a lot of intertextuality and dialogue around that trip. And then, I was coming back on the 26th of February, and I have learned the next day that the previous day, so on the 26th, when I was coming back home, that something happened in Israel. So it was basically said that there was war. I knew about it, and it was said that some heads went down, but it wasn't my rabbi who said that, just somebody in the group, and I didn't even see the person speaking. I can just tell you it was a woman who said that. Um, and what I want to tell you about heads is that uh, within the period of my life, there were a lot of moments like when I was trying to make a bridge out of my body. So, you put your hands up and you try to place both of your hands on the floor and you make this bridge out of your body. And not once when learning that, I would actually almost hit the floor with my own head when being quite little. Or I would just, walk around in a circle. I was running, 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 and then I fell and I hit my head yet again on the radiator. Um, or I made something out of clay. I made a dog, and then it wasn't a different part of its body, but it was just its head that went down. Um, and a few years later, when I was already a teenager, I visited my brother, and we had some alcohol, some beer. We used to have beer together, and he was sitting on the balcony, and I remember standing and wondering, like, should I just take him home, or I don't know if he wanted to be alone, and he's got a habit of being out and then coming back home if he needs that. Or I had no experience, like no information, like what should I do in such situation. I have never it never crossed my mind that sitting on the balcony could be somehow threatening to him, and therefore I just went to the flat. And then he told me the next day, he asked me why didn't I took him to the flat, because he was sitting there and he might have been too tipsy, and which I couldn't tell. And he fell with his head and he bumped his head. So I just totally didn't know what to do. But that I should have done that I could have prevented something, I didn't know. And I also saw my niece, and she was a baby girl, like not even 1 year old, when she was just sitting on her dad's knees, and she just went down on the table and she hit with her head at the table. And you know what? what I link this all with is basically the food that's called cabbage, because the cabbage is round, and in Poland we call it the head of the cabbage. That's the word we use. So we would eat, my entire life we would eat a lot of cabbage. We all loved cabbage, and in people who actually have that word in their surname married into my family. So that's basically very often, very frequently met symbolism in gypsy surnames. They don't have random surnames. They have surnames that have a lot of meanings included in them. And before going to London, therefore, I'm telling you all these examples with whenever I had to do with, bumping my own head or saw somebody else's bumping their head, is because spirit works that way, that we act something out, we act the future right now, and that thing that happens right now may a lot of the times repeat in the future. And we just, yeah, we act out the future. We show people things, our future, with our actions, or even with bumping our head. That's possible too. And before going to London, I had a few days when I was just trying to I have finished writing the book, and I wrote the motion to the court, and whenever I printed out the motion, I just had it slightly changed. It was different to what I, brought to the printing cafe, printing shop, copy shop. I'm sorry. So there was a lot of work, a lot of responsibility, and then I just, wanted to take a break from it all and watch fairy tales. And I started to watch, Snow White, and I watched Aladdin, and Snow White is about an apple, and I felt guilty about having food over there in the Buckingham Palace. So, so what I wanted to tell you is also, let me think. Aladdin. When I was a little girl, we had a tower. So when I was a little girl, I don't remember watching Aladdin on TV, but I remember we had the tower, and I was sitting on the balcony, and I was drawing Aladdin, Jasmina, and Jane. They were on this magical carpet, and I was drawing it, and my neighbor could see me when I was drawing, and when I was this adult woman, soon about to go to London to file the motion to the court, then I was I watched Aladdin, I watched Snow White, and I watched a lot of other tales too. And when I got back, I received those bad news that some heads went down. That's all I know. But there are many more aspects to that story, because I told you about the number 26, that my dad was hit by the car on the 26th, and he lived in a house number 6, and a 6 years old boy was, fell off the door frame. So I told you that many times, but there are many aspects to that story, right? So, I got back home. I received the news, and after some time, I started to clean, and I found a diploma with Snow White from 3rd grade. So my surname, I don't know if you can see, but my surname is written in green pen. Sorry, with green pen. Here it says 3rd grade, and here is the date. So it's 26 May 2001, right? Okay. So there's this date 26. So, oh well, okay. So there's green color, and I associate green with Jewish Community Center in Krakow because they wear a green T-shirt and they look great in green. And the date itself is 26. That's my very, very bad association. But number 5 is also included in here. And I went there. I went to JCC. I'm sorry, to London to talk to the king on the 25th of February. 2025. So number 5 is included in the year and in the day that I went there, and 26 is the day that I was called up because I believed I had no papers all of a sudden. So as I'm saying, this is a very a longer story and a more complex story. Yeah. Let me just see what else they want to tell you about. And basically, I think that the illusion that the door was closed, that the options were closed, was being created for me on purpose. Like whenever I, um, whenever I was going somewhere, then a lot of people was going with me, starting with coming back from Berlin. Coming back from a psychiatric hospital to my sister's place. They arrived to pick me up from this psychiatric hospital, and there were a lot of black cars riding behind us. And when I went to JCC Krakow, Jewish Community Center, for the first time, I went there to see Jewish festival. Then there were a lot of people whom I tried to block and not to see them. But there were a lot of brown skinned people, a lot of gypsy people, a lot of Arabic people, and I believe there were other nations too, because occultists are actually in every nation out there. And when I went to London to file the motion to the king, there were also a lot of people. And of course, on a variety of occasions, like just going to see my professor, or going to see, going shopping, or going to work at McDonald's. Oh my. So not only on those 3 occasions I have mentioned, there were all of a sudden, in a very small town, all of a sudden we had a lot of people going wherever I went. Yeah. And one more thing that I can relate to from the past was that my brother was dating a woman who had a child, and her name was Amelia, and they used to call her Ach Melka. And Ach Amelia is the name of my course, which kind of happened like, I was thinking about Alicia, and I think I would create Alicia too, and I was thinking about Amelia. And so I have Amelia, and it started with ach, like, expressing your surprisement, or, some emotion, but it's also this association, like, ach, when we have a close relation with someone, if we get intimate with someone, then we do that too. And once you are sexually abused, then it's not that easy to either talk about it, or it's not that easy to be open about having sex, right? So this ach is like, this amazement that maybe we can just, maybe you can work through it and get back to to expressing oh, because there are many more sounds that I came up with when creating the course. Uh, so therefore, I have Amelia, and when I post those stories of people I have observed about identities of sexually abused people that I have observed, then I use hashtag Amelia. So therefore, when 4 years ago, 5 years ago, there was a woman who had a child named Amelia, and everybody around me called her Melka. Well, that sounds like my hashtag. I just had no idea. And when I was thinking of the hashtag, then I didn't have this direct association. Oh, that was the girl, and I like that. No. So I think that's one of the ways, somebody says something, you have the input to your Akashic records. On your left side is your private side. I learned from David Snyder, and therefore they can see, the content you would be placing. This is how Akashic records work. And then one more thing, when I was a little girl, my sisters would cross the street on the red light, and my father, yelled at them terribly at home. And many years later, about 25 years later, my father died because he crossed the street at the zebra crossing with the red light on. And you already know that, the way Dad died was a lot of dialogue with what I wrote about. Okay. Or what I said. Okay. And I'm telling you because I think he died on the 3rd of February, and he probably died at 12:22 or 12:23 or 12:24. I didn't have my contact lenses, and it might have taken me 1 minute to reach to the clock. So I'm not sure what time precisely, but both of these numbers are symbolic too. Okay. So yeah. So we talked about a monkey, a dragon, yeah, and dwarfs, chickens, piggybanks, pigs, Aladdin and a Snow White, and Achmelka and red lights, and and the cabbage too. So if you want to learn more about my book Piglet, then drop me a line at elkinga788@gmail.com. And if you want to check out my course Amelia and learn more about mind games, and manipulation and shaping personalities into those who have no boundaries and no ways to protect themselves from sexual abuse, then check out my course in the description of this film. You will find all the info in the description of the film on my website, on my Facebook, Instagram accounts. And if you like this video, hit the like button and share it with other people too. And thanks for watching.